Welcome to the new Overlords Podcast, where we talk about video games, news, and what's fun. I'm Max, and with me is someone who is fresh as a box of yum yum deviled eggs, my co-host Sema. Hello there, Sema.
That means I've been dried whole.
Yes. Freeze-dried for 200 years, is subjected to radiation.
No, not freeze-dried, just dried.
They're just dried? Well,
yeah.
I guess there's a myriad of ways to dry deviled eggs. Or is there?
I think they would say freeze if it was freeze-dried. But anyway, this is a Fallout reference, which is topical, wouldn't you say, Max?
It is. This episode is going to be part 2 of our Fallout series. It's really going to be another Fallout episode. It's not like you had to listen to part 1. Part 1, if you didn't hear it last week, we talked mostly about the lore and the timeline and how everything put together, where the games fit in that timeline, and a bunch of that background. This week, we're going to get more talk about how the games work, what I've been doing in Fallout 76, and how you play the games, and how that then connects to the TV show. And then by the end of the episode, we're going to go deeper into the TV show, give our reactions to it, and we'll warn you, but we'll start out pretty general. We'll start out non-spoilery, but I'd say by the end, we'll get into spoiler territory, definitely, because we both finished it and we have words to say. So
we should have an air horn that you can just play.
Like Talias and Evitel when they have the little robot with the red light that comes up when they're talking about spoilers.
Oh. Yeah, that would be good. Let's steal their robot.
Yeah. I'd have to do it real time, though. I don't want to edit the podcast video afterwards and put it in like they do.
No, I would not want to put as much work in as they do.
No, work. Me not that kind of work. Time for the news.
Good news, everyone.
First up in the news, I did want to talk about just a couple games that are coming out soon that have caught my eye. 3 games actually coming out this week. A couple people have turned me on to and said I should be looking at Manor Lords. Manor Lords is a city builder. It's a medieval city builder, and you've got little squads of fighters that you can set up, and you map out your village. And it looks pretty cool. It looks pretty well done. Supposedly it's going to be a small scale developer. Someone told me, I didn't have a chance to confirm, but somebody said a single developer. This looks like a lot more than a single developer could do to me, because just of the scale of what's going on here. But maybe, and if so, great job. Modern gaming tools can make this kind of thing possible. But the number of people that you've got, sort of the number of NPCs that are running around, and the AI interaction when you've got an invasion on your little town, I don't know if how easy that would be for a single person to do a whole game around. But whatever the case, it's looking pretty good, and it's getting a lot of buzz. I wouldn't say a lot of buzz, a fair amount of indie buzz. So we'll see how it turns out. I haven't done a lot of city builders. Have you, Sema? Have you done many city builders over time?
No, never.
I've done them once in a while, and I do really like it and get into it. So I could see this at least being interesting to try. I like building in games. I like building, houses and castles and stuff. Yes. This is more of building a town and a village and laying it out and building the rows and where they're going to go.
It looks like you do get workers.
Right. And then you assign your townspeople to different areas. It's not like you go out and do the gathering. The way the city builders tend to work is you assign squads and you assign resources, and you put a bunch of peasants on a field and they gather stuff for you. And you're just more like a god mode over the top of making everything work, which has a certain appeal as well.
and then someone comes in and kills all your guys.
Yeah, raiders. I don't think this is multiplayer, but NPC raiders, other medieval lords will come and try to take your vassals and raid your crops and whatnot, as Manor Lords will do. 2 other games that have some buzz around them. One we talked about 2 weeks ago was Sandland.
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks ago? Yeah, 2 weeks ago, I think we talked about it. That is coming out tomorrow. So we're recording on Wednesday. This is coming out on Thursday. It's getting pretty good early reviews, and yeah, it'll be out tomorrow. Pretty hot for a number of reasons. Some of the impetus behind the game is based on some work by some famous game designers. Yes, Sandland, as it was known before today, has been around for 2 decades in the form of a manga series written and illustrated by the creator of Dragon Ball, the late Akira Toriyama. So there we go. So that's why it's getting some buzz also, because the creator of Dragon Ball just recently passed away in the past couple weeks. 2-3 weeks? Yeah. So keep an eye out for that. Remember, that's a little action and ARPG that you can check out. And then another ARPG that you can check out, which is getting its own sort of buzz, which is coming out Friday. Again, I probably won't be playing much of either of these, but Stellar Blade sure getting a lot of buzz around it for, taking their main character and making her not wear any clothes throughout the gameplay. The stereotypical female armor and body shape is what has got some people, it's whatever. People are just mostly just rolling their eyes. Stellar Blade in and of itself is supposed to be a pretty good action RPG game. But yeah, the designers here really are doing some eye-rolling stuff with the main character, as you can imagine. Yeah. But nothing all that I've heard, and nobody's too up in arms. More just eye-rolling. So if you hear anything else about either of these games, let me know if they're worth playing. But it's part of these April releases that have got some good stuff still going on. Good stuff still coming out. As with the Manor Lords, if you do see anything out there that's really interesting, send it my way, because I love to hear about this stuff and try it out, especially the indie kind of things that fit into the survival or RPG adjacent. And this Manor Lord sort of fits into that. So thanks to, I think it might have been either Forster or Kazrick or maybe even Tetsemi who shot this my way, or Nazrai. Somebody in our New Overlords Discord. Speaking of which, if you do want to hear more, you can always join us on our Discord at newoverlords.com. And all of the links to anything else you need about the podcast are also on newoverlords.com, including straight up RSS feed links if you want to go that direction and not have to go through iTunes or Spotify, which we are also on. Or you could ask your Amazon Echo to say, Alexa, play the New Overlords podcast. Did you know you could do that? That actually does work. Play the New Overlords podcast. There. Alexa, play the New Overlords podcast. We're going to get a bump in our plays in our stats because I did that this week.
Right.
Special thanks to everyone that hangs out with us here live on Twitch or in our Discord, where, as I said, we talk about game stuff pretty much all day, every day. Lots of Fallout stuff in the past week. We had some people jumping in and playing at different times over the course of the past week. I've been playing a lot of Fallout. Still a bunch of ARC talk, Star Wars talk, a lot of game talk going on in there, as well as, if you're looking for a big family-friendly gaming community, Alea Iacta Est, and the Discord for that is at aie-guild.org. All right, Sema.
Hello there. I'm here to show you a wonderful place.
A wonderful place. We are going to show you a wonderful place. So first up is just a little bit of news. We will talk about the TV show later, but Series 2 renewed. That has been confirmed by Fallout on Prime, by the official feed. We will see you back in the wasteland for Season 2. So I am excited about that. It has been a fun ride, and we'll definitely talk about how fun of a ride it's been. But yeah.
I hope Season 2 sickness does not set in.
Explain Season 2 sickness for...
That is when you loved a Season 1 of something and you go, oh, I hope there's a Season 2. And then there is a Season 2, but then you can never make yourself go back and watch it.
Yeah, good point. Good point. I
I,
tend
I,
to
so
fall
many
off.
shows I've never seen the season 2 of.
I do tend to fall off on season 2s relatively
And
often.
it's fairly mysterious to me, the process. It's like I don't know why I don't. Or I don't on some and I might on others.
Well, I would be excited because, as we'll talk about by the end of this, the 8th episode tied a whole bunch of stuff together, but still left a couple mysteries and even created a couple new ones. But it
Yeah,
did really tie the room together like a fine rug
right.
does.
To me, that's the best way to end a season is when you don't leave us hanging on old stuff, but you introduce a new thing
Right.
to make us curious.
Yeah. Were we chatting about Lost on our mandatory fun night on Tuesday night with the guild? So
Do
yeah,
not
not that.
recommend.
But
Well, I mean,
games,
in all fairness, maybe this show will do the same if it gets 6 seasons.
it could. It could. They might fall upon some of those kinds of tricks. And I mean, they did certainly leave a couple big, what's happening, what's next. But they did tie up all of the
Right.
current, all of the things
And
they introduced in the first half of the season. They tied up, which was really nice, almost all,
right, right.
in a really good way.
Or at
Uh,
least revisited.
some of the things. So why don't we start by talking about the games, because there are both Easter eggs and almost derived aspects of the way the show works and the way the story is told that seem to connect to the way the games are played, which are pretty unique in a couple different ways. It's a Bethesda thing, so it wasn't originally Bethesda. It was two other studios, Bethesda. It was Obsidian, and then Bethesda picked it up. And so sort of the way the current games work are very Bethesda-ish. So RPG, you get to do it a little bit open world. There's multiple factions. You get to decide what faction you're siding with, and you get to play through the game with the build and the kind of character and the kind of playthrough that you want, which gives replayability and it gives you the ability to have the experience that you want and tell the story that you want. So I've been playing a ton. So I played a little bit of New Vegas back in the day. I played a lot of Fallout 4, and now over the course, both when it launched and over the course of the past couple weeks, I've played a ton of Fallout 76. So most of this is going to be sort of the Fallout 76 perspective. And if you're not familiar, Fallout 76 is more of a moderately multiplayer. So it's massively multiplayer, but only about 25 people are in a public shard of the world at a time. And the public worlds, the servers are dynamic and they spin up. You're not like picking a server. You're not dedicating yourself to server. If you log out and log back in, you'll likely be on a different quote unquote server. But there's a lot of grouping. It's mostly groups of 4, or it's all groups of 4, up to 4. But a lot of grouping, a lot of visiting other players' public camps, and I'll explain what those are in a bit. But it definitely feels like a multiplayer game in a really fun way. And if you want to go play with friends, you can definitely do that in these public worlds, or up to 8 players in a private version of the map. So you started with me 2 weeks ago, 2 Mondays ago, and we rolled a couple characters. How did you? So what was your experience rolling the character, like picking your build? Because you did the jump to 20.
I
Uh,
did.
okay, so
I
that
I
that
did.
simplifies it a little bit.
Yeah, and my reasoning there was I figured if they provided that as an option, then that might be their idea of the best way for a new player to get sort of situated, and I think probably that's true.
Yeah, there was debate about that. Uh, Even within like a bunch of the content creators that are making videos saying do it or don't do it, and everyone seems kind of split. I would say definitely do it. Do the jump to 20. You're not missing anything. Everything you do is scaled to your level, whatever your level is, and there is no level cap. Well, there is a level cap. I think I've heard that the level cap is like an assigned int, so like 32,000. 32,768 or whatever the number is. And there are people out there that are over 10,000. Most high level players are in the hundreds. You know, I've seen like 300, 500 relatively often for long-term players that have been playing since launch. Since I started a week and a half ago, I went from 20 to about, I think I'm 62 now, level 62 or level 64, something like that. So yeah, it's in each level you could pick a different perks or different builds or change your stats. It's all very changeable to correct anything that you didn't like when you just sort of picked one of the vanilla builds. So when you start at level 20, they give you like 5 builds to choose from and the choice, just a set of cards for what you probably would have picked along the way. Is it perfectly optimized for the perfect level 20? No, but level 20 is just level 20.
Right. Right.
That's like
There's
saying
many more levels.
that's like saying, is my level 10 gnome coming out of, you know, gnome or Dunmorrow the like perfectly optimized? Does it matter? Just
Right,
run naked
exactly.
and punch warthogs or whatever gnome or what are the guys with the candles?
Warthogs, kobolds,
Kobolds. Well, what are the pigs that you have to fight uh in Alliance Land?
pigs.
Yeah, boars. You'd kill a bunch
Yeah,
of
yeah,
boars.
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 Yes, you're right. You're right.
Warthogs, boars, they're kind of the
I
same
was
thing.
when yeah, I was going like pig humanoids. I'm like, no, I don't know what you mean. But yes, boars, wild boars, junior boars, senior boars.
uh, there's 2 sets of no, there's actually more than 2. The 2 main no one expects the Spanish Inquisition. Greatest asset is surprise and strategy. There are 2 greatest. So the 2 main ways to build your character are your stats, which are your special, SPECIAL, and that's strength, perception, endurance, charisma, intelligence, agility, and luck. And those are straight up points. Now, the way you assign points and you mix those points is by picking cards at the time that you're at each level, you get an opportunity to add a point. The points all cap out at a total of 50 points. There are ways to increase points in a particular category by additional like mutations or abilities or legendary perks or things like that. But you kind of have 50 points to play with. So at level 20, you only have like 20 points to play with. It doesn't really matter. So you're trying to get to sort of to level 50. But your special, your strength, perception, endurance, charisma, intelligence, agility, luck, also then determine as you have a number of points in those categories, each up to 15, how many perk cards you can assign to that category. And perk cards either come in 1 point up to potentially, I think, 5 points. Some of them, a lot of them cap out at 3 points. So if you want, you know, say you've got 9 points in charisma and you've got 3 big charisma perks that you want at 3 points each, well then fine. You've got 3 cards and 3 points for each of those cards. And that uses up all 9 of your points for charisma. And that's your build. So you have perk cards and you have your stat points. And I think, in my view, that's a pretty clever way to sort of put things together and to be unique and yet not, you know, too obtuse that you can't figure it out as a new player coming into it. What did you think? I mean, did you look into any detail too much in like the perk cards and swapping them in and out and like turning up 1 point into a 3-star perk card or anything like that, Sema?
No, because I was too busy counting my bullets.
Mm-hmm. Well, there are perk
Just
cards to make it
walking
easier
around.
to get bullets and make bullets. But yeah,
I should have looked at them, in other words.
so there are a lot of perk cards that will change up how you go about. And I'm going to bring up this video because this is the video I've been using. So this is a content creator called Wiggle. Wiggle Plays is his channel. He's got a really good video for one of the builds that I'm pretty close to at this point, which is a full health. So there's a way to make you more powerful the higher in health you are, versus a bloodied build, which is the more powerful you are, the lower your health. So those are two
Interesting.
weird terms that you'll hear people talk about. I'm going to be a bloodied melee build, a bloodied chainsaw. Okay, well, bloodied means that they're sort of sticking their health at about 20% or lower, and there's ways to make it stick there with radiation. But I'm doing this full health gunslinger build, and this is kind of like the look of what it looks like. You put a lot of points into a couple particular stats because that's where you're going to put most of your abilities. And then the cards that you're picking, the abilities that you're picking, are really I mean, there's some key ones that like make your build what it is. If you're going to be using pistols, you're going to want perks that make pistols shoot better. You're not going to use perks that make swords sharper if you're using pistols. That makes sense.
Right.
So there's like defensive and offensive cards, but then there's a lot of like there's both crafting cards, there's quality of life cards, there's cards to make you run a little faster, there's cards to make when you are teamed up with other players to make you a little bit better. And there's cards, so there's tons and tons of cards that allow you to really customize the build. So the way Wiggle here describes this build, and you can even sort of see it the way it's laid out on this screen as he was describing it. He said, I'm going to show you what this build is at the baseline. And in this 50 points, he has what here? 8, 12, 15 points unused. So those 15 points that are unused in both perception, intelligence, and charisma, you can pick a bunch of utility cards. You can pick anything that sort of like feels good or looks good to you and slot them in or swap them in and out. You can have multiple builds. I think you might have to like pay to unlock like in-game currency to unlock, or I have Fallout First, which is sort of like their subscription, which I think gave me a second build automatically, but you get a multiple builds and switch back and forth with them. So you could have a crafting build that's all focused on crafting. You could have a build that's focused on, like melee, wearing a steel combat armor, power armor, and then one that's just focused on guns. So I really like the system I like cards as a metaphor for like what you're picking and how you're arranging and building up your build, and the points in each of the special. I think is a good way to say, well, this is how many you can sort of have in this category, and this is why these stats matter. In some RPGs you'll play, they'll have a bunch of the basic stats. They can have endurance and agility and luck, but then you'll say like, well, what does luck actually do for me? And it'd be like, well, it kind of like makes you get your loot is maybe a little bit better. It like doesn't really change much, and it doesn't like some of those stats can be kind of useless. Like in Star Wars, so in Star Wars: The Old Republic, we've got a bunch of stats. But we really like don't care. It's like you get your
Right.
armor, and you don't pick your stat numbers. Your stat numbers come off your gear in Star Wars: The Old Republic, but you just take whatever endurance your DPS set gives you, and you never think about the endurance number. Crit and alacrity, you do care about what the threshold is because they each do a thing, kind of, but it's really loose. Whereas
Yeah.
here, like agility, there's a bunch of perks that are your agility perks, and they all have to do with, they feel like they have to do with agility. And charisma perks all feel like they have to do with charisma. And endurance perks all feel like they have to do with endurance. So it seems to just flow really well together, if that makes sense. Does it make sense, Sema?
Yeah, it does.
So anyway, I've got like this. I've got a bunch of perks that make my pistols shoot faster and make them work better when I'm in stealth, because I've got a bit of a stealthy build. Didn't have to be, but I like it in stealth. And I've got a bunch of perks that make a crit really good, and when it crits, the crit damage is better. And this will come up when we talk about the TV show, I've got perks that make the VATS system work better. What does VATS stand for? I forgot what VATS stands for.
I think it's something to do with targeting, right?
It's a targeting thing in Fallout. The Fallout wiki is actually pretty good. So what does VATS stand for? So VATS has been around in Vault Tech Assisted Targeting System. So VATS has been around for a little while, from Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, Fallout 4. It's sort of really refined and working good in Fallout 4. I liked it there. But in the single player game, the way VATS worked is it kind of froze time for a minute. So you would hit into VATS, you would freeze time, you would be able to target particular body parts and queue up some shots. And then when you kind of unfroze time, all of those queued up attacks would go off. And that's the way you could sort of like do combo attacks and attack in sequence and things like that and hit the parts that you're trying to hit. You can't do that in a real-time multiplayer game. So in Fallout 76, there's still a VAT system, but it's a little bit more real-time. So you'll still get the highlighted body parts, but you'll have to be spec'd into it for it to work, and you'll have to be highlighting those body parts that you're targeting kind of real-time while you're fighting. And then you've got an action bar, an action meter, and action points that limit how many sort of abilities within the VAT system you can be using before you sort of soak up and use up all your sort of VATS time. And then there's perks to make like abilities cost less action points and things like that. But that VATS build, the ability to sort of really pinpoint target your shots, it still feels good in Fallout 76. And as I said, well, when we get to the show and talk about it, we'll talk about it there too. But so that's another thing that I'm doing is I've got my build set up. So, and I've had to really play with it. I had it set up with like the gunslinger perks at first, and I switched over to guerrilla perks because I wanted still to use the pistol because I'm specializing in pistol, but I wanted to be focusing on crit and stealth, and guerrilla was more optimal for that for me, which was cool. It was cool to sort of learn about this and play through it.
Right. Work it all out.
I've been, I would say, watching videos more than, guerrilla is automatic pistols. Gunslinger is single shot pistols. That's the difference. And I switched to automatic, but I am burning through the ammo, Sema. So that was our story from last week, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I was using a 6-shooter most of last week. Sema came in with an automatic rifle and was like unloading clip after clip into like, stop shooting. He's already dead. It's like shooting the scorched laying on the ground.
I'm like, did I get it?
But you do burn through the ammo, and I am burning through ammo with the automatic build. A lot of it's because I'm in a lot of these open world events, which I'll talk about in a second here as well, which is a really cool system. But in the open world event, you're getting waves and waves of, 100, 200 enemies, and you'll burn through 500, 600 rounds of ammunition, even if you're playing conservatively then. And it costs a lot, but it's rewarding. So there's reasons that I'm willing to put up with it, but I need to get some more perks that either get me some more ammo or save ammo, or I've already got perks that have more ammo dropping for me as loot, but I need more ammo. So I'm going to have to figure that out. But yeah, so I like that opportunity to discover how the system works. It did have a pretty high learning curve, I would say, but I did get that feel of here's stats and here's perks, and I can really sort of put those together. Those perks also, for a couple of the characters, sort of fit what we'll talk about in the TV show too. So keep that in your mind. Now, on top of perks and like the stats and perks, there are legendary perks. So those are like, you only have a couple slots for legendary, and when you're really high up in levels, you'll maybe get a couple of extra slots. So then as you progress towards end game in Fallout 76, there's more things that you can start thinking about and worrying about for fun, because that's what higher level players will want to do.
Right.
And then there's a system called mutations, which is you can get irradiated. I don't know if it only happens once you're level 50, because I got my first mutation, my first random mutation due to radiation after level 50. But I didn't spend a lot of time like highly radiated, and I did much more after 50. So maybe it just didn't happen to happen. There are ways to lock it down so you're not losing your mutations by curing yourself, because there are some mutations you may want to make sure you keep. And each mutation typically has a benefit and a negative, a positive and a negative. So you could think of these sort of like almost like our legendary abilities in Star Wars: The Old Republic on your tacticals, your tactical and your legendary implants. They can like
Right.
modify and multiply out your build, change your play style just a little bit. It's not going to really break things. It's not crazy, but definitely modifies you and can amp up your damage. It can, I think it can even get you up, like with the right set of mutations, get you up to like 50% more damage. But I've got a couple mutations lined up, and then there's ways you can get a serum that gives you a specific mutation. The typical way you go and find those is you can go pay for a recipe, which are really expensive with in-game currency, or you can go to other players' camps and their player vendors, and you can buy them from them, which is sort of the way trade works in the
Right.
game. So yeah, mutations. So yeah, special. Oh, and then armor. So armor and weapons, and those have abilities and crafting as well. And this is another fun thing that you can start to do. There are regular armor pieces. There are regular armor pieces which have certain attributes on them. And then as you get legendary pieces, and those usually drop from legendary creatures, it's 1-star, 2-star, 3-star. Those will typically give you 1, 2, or 3 extra special abilities on the armor piece. This is a set that I'm working towards right now. I don't have the vendors unlocked. There are storylines that I need to go through and factions I need to align myself with, but I need this like covert, stealthy, lightweight armor set that still gives me good resist, but allows me to stealth really good. That stuff has all of those extra abilities on it. It's got like the stealth, it's got the extra damage resist, and you put those things together off the sort of the legendary perks that are on the armor set as well. And you can construct these, and you have to repair them all over time, and stuff breaks relatively often. You need to be seeking out the stuff in the world, scavenging all of the junk you see everywhere, as every Bethesda game has, to get the materials to keep your weapons and armor repaired. Because it's the same thing with weapons. Weapons have like 7 different, well, this has 7 different ways to modify the weapon. So I had to learn about all of these. You can have a silencer or not. You can have the grip and the sight and one of them is just the skin. How cool do you want your weapon to look? And you can go get a monthly reward that's a special skin which turns your gun pink or whatever. You get a bunch of that kind of stuff. So this does figure somewhat into the cosmetic system of the game. And there's cosmetics in sort of all of the Fallout games, so at least a little bit, where you can skin you get some armor, you get a power armor suit, and you can skin it to look like the Brotherhood, or you can skin it to be camouflage paint job, or have a flame job on it, or whatever. As you would expect in Fallout 76, because it's a live service game, there is a cash shop, and you can pay for some of these skins as well. If you've got like the subscription, well, then you're getting currency for the cash shop, and you're getting free skins and stuff monthly as well. Is a sort of the
Are
way
the
they
are
keep it
the
going.
prices reasonable for the armor? I mean, I know that's a subjective question, but we were talking in Discord last night about games where a cosmetic armor set is like $30 in the shop.
Yes, I would say they are reasonable then. And this is just going based off what I'm kind of just basically remembering. You get I think you get like almost 2,000 currency, cash shop currency per month subscribing to their monthly system, which was $7 the first month and like it's like $15 a month, $12 a month. I think it's $12 a month. So then for $12, you're getting 2,000, and a lot of the armor sets, like the armor skins and stuff like that, seem to be quite a bit less than that. Like you could get two a month. So $5 for an armor skin, $5 for a cosmetic armor set.
Mm-hmm.
So Forrester's saying $16.50, but some are 500, some are 800. So maybe two. And then a bunch of them go on sale all the time. A bunch of them come in bundles with other stuff. So it seemed pretty reasonable to me. Like I didn't feel like I bought some stuff with my starting currency, and you can earn that Cash Shop currency in game too. And I bought some utility stuff because there are sort of mildly quality of life utility things that come out of the Cash Shop too. And I bought a couple of those things, and I still have like 1,800 or 1,900 of the currency because I earned some in game and I spent like half of my first allocation, and I still have a bunch and I'm not even spending it. So it seems pretty reasonable to me. So yeah. So, but bunch of that kind of customization. So armor, weapons, your stats, your perk cards, your mutations. And you put all that together, and then you've got like a character and a build, and you can swap it out. You can change them around. You can change out your weapons. You can have a different build. You can try different things because you're going up level after level after level, and the levels, even after level 60, seem to be still coming relatively quickly. You can seemingly, I'm sure you can if you can get up to level 10,000. You can get every perk card in the game and every arrangement of every perk card you could imagine, which is nice. So that's a nice way to go about it. And as Forrester says, there's free stuff to claim out of this Cash Shop too. There's consumables in the Cash Shop, and they give you free ones of those, it seems, every day, whether you subscribe or not. So they seem to be relatively fair with that Cash Shop stuff. So yeah, it's cool. So that's like a character. You could decide how you're going to play it, and then you can decide the story you're going to tell as well. All of the Fallout games are very kind of story driven. I would say very story driven. So you're playing through a story. In Fallout New Vegas, you were the courier, and you get shot in the face in the opening scene by Benny, the bad guy, and you get to decide what you're going to do from there. You're going to be on a path for vengeance to take over New Vegas, or just to kill Benny, or side with one of the multiple factions that you can encounter. In Fallout 3, you are a young man or a young person whose father left the vault some long time ago, and you leave the vault also to go seek out your father. In Fallout 4, you are a parent, either the mother or the father, and your spouse gets killed, and your son gets kidnapped, and you leave the vault to go seek out your son. So you have a driving core main story, but then there's Brotherhood of Steel, and you can encounter them and learn. And in each of the games, they are sort of kind of at a different point in their evolution and a different point in the timeline. They're sort of represented a little bit differently. You can seek them out. And the same thing in the show. We're seeing a sort of like a different take on the Brotherhood, or a different faction, or some other guys who are part of the Brotherhood, but are somewhere else. So there's a lot of that. Who's who? Who are these factions? Who do you want to side with? How do you want to play it? Do you want to pit them against each other? Do you want to be a raider? Do you want to be a enclave, part of the government? Do you want to take down the government? Do you want to be do you want to join the Brotherhood of Steel? Or do you want to go out your own and like take them all down? You get to play it that way, however you sort of feel you want to play it. And again, when we talk about the TV show, a lot of that kind of seems to be represented, especially in the three main characters.
Yes.
So, and we get introduced to a whole bunch of those factions also. There's raiders, there's vault dwellers, there's vault tech in the government, and what they're all doing. So that seemed to be an interesting adaptation from the games too. In Fallout 76, I was surprised from last week to this week. So you and I, when we were playing last week, you met like the overseer, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
what was your story and your take on the world that we were getting into, just from that little brief introduction?
Well, I think one drawback for me from the way we started was that, and Tatsumi mentioned this too, is that it wasn't clear to me which was the main story and which was things that came later because they've the game has been out for a long time. And I would have preferred to just play the main story while I was learning, getting my sea legs and everything. And so we went on a few side things that were just distractions, really, which is fine. A lot of people play that way.
Yeah,
Just I would like to have more of a path to follow,
right. Uh,
at least in the beginning. Then I can make up my own stuff later.
and they're kind of like two main stories these days. The overseer, the sort of the one we're sort of working on to start. That was the old original main story, and still is a main story you're intended to do, because it also introduces you into the Settlers faction and the Raiders faction, and a bunch of other stuff along the way. The Wastelanders came out later and was sort of an expansion of the world to sort of put more life into the world. I think we talked about it last week. When it first launched, the game world was pretty dead. And the intent, the idea was, the concept was the players were going to build their camps and populate the world. And it was post apocalyptic, and you would just be finding like records of things that had gone on. Well, everybody said, well, this whole world is dead. Well, yeah, it was kind of supposed to be, but yeah, you're also kind of right. Let's populate it with NPCs and have more factions and people and ways to interact with the world. And that's what they started adding on later. And I think it's in a pretty good state right now. So the Wastelanders, I haven't gotten too far. I've sort of stuck with the Overseer, and you did also, when we were playing in Lucy. We go out.
Well, we did go in that Wayfarer's Inn or whatever it
Yeah,
was, and that
the
was probably,
Duchess, which is
yeah, that was probably from later.
right. Yeah, we did check that out. I didn't continue down that path. But yeah, it's like right there in the sort of the first place you go,
Right.
right, right where the overseer's also telling you to go. So it's all sort of like tied into sort of like the early areas of the game. The map to me didn't seem that big. The world didn't seem that big. How did it seem to you? So we're in Appalachia, West Virginia.
It depends. When I didn't know about quick travel, it felt like it took forever to get places.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess yeah, so that's my answer to the size question. That's my only answer. How long it takes to get places,
I
like in any game.
right, but even with that, it took a long time, but you're like running. And if you run in any zone in any game and you're just running back and forth across the zone,
Yeah.
it this place didn't seem that big to me. But
Right.
now, a week later, and now that I've got like quick travel and can get anywhere around the map in an instant, if for whatever reason it seems much bigger than I had expected.
Interesting.
So this game is set in West Virginia. The TV show is set in LA. New Vegas is set in the remains of Las Vegas. So each of the Fallouts have sort of been in different areas, and they cross over to some degree. And in fact, even in Fallout 76, you can go visit Pittsburgh and you can visit Atlantic City. They're what they call expeditions. It's sort of like operations, or a raid. So there's ways to bring other places into the world as well. But each thing you do, and this is sort of very Bethesda-ish, you got to go talk to the overseer. Fine, you go talk to the overseer. Along the way, you see a dead body, and you're going to loot everything because there's stuff to loot everywhere. And you loot the dead body, and there's a note on this dead body, and the note says, "Hey, you should go check out this this cave over here. So then a little thing pops up on your map and in your HUD and says, "Oh, check out the cave." And maybe it's on the way, so you decide, "Well, fine, I'm gonna go check it out." And you get into the cave, and then there's a terminal in there, and there's mobs to fight, and you fight them, and the terminal says, "We were working on this research project for this really cool armor, and you should go do these things." I'm like, "Oh, well, maybe I want to do that. Maybe that'll help me with the Overseer quest line." Next thing you know, you're like deep in all this
Yeah.
part of the world, and that never. I'm like, I keep running into that. I felt like I was like getting close to the end of the Overseer, like the main storyline, and I feel like there's 100 times more content than I had thought there was when I started the game.
Yeah.
100. It's crazy. I keep thinking of things I want to do, quality of life things. I keep thinking of things like Brotherhood of Steel. Okay, Brotherhood of Steel. I haven't even met them yet. I've got an excuse to go find out what happened to them, but you can get power armor. Well, if you want to store power armor, there's a power armor rack that you can get. But to get the power armor rack, you need to go do a quest line. Okay, so fine. Look on the wiki. How do I get a power armor rack? Oh, well, you need to go talk to this person. Okay, well, how do I talk to that person? Oh, well, you need to have done this quest line. Oh, well, where does that quest line start? Well, you need to, it's like a rabbit hole in reverse to even figure out where you
Yeah,
start.
no. Yeah. And sometimes I can really enjoy that too. But yeah, I mean, I've done that in other games where I can't believe the extent I went to get one thing,
Yeah,
and yet I enjoyed the whole thing.
right, right, right. And I'm still having fun. And then I realize, I don't even want power armor. I'm not using power armor in my build. And I've been spending hours trying to get this stupid power armor rack because inventory is a pain in the ass, and power armor weighs more than anything else. It's all based on weight. Why am I wasting my time on this stupid power armor? I just want a better gun. Well, how do I get a better gun? Oh, let me tell you. This game has been out for a while. Fallout 76 was launched, when was it? 5 years ago now? Fallout 76 was 2018. Yeah. So 6 years, almost 6 years now.
Yep.
They've been adding content. And in addition to all of the quests and side missions, there's now dailies all over the place. There's sort of like a battle pass challenge system. What do they call that? I forgot what that's called. It's season. It's called season. They're on season 16. So with season 16, just like with our Star Wars: The Old Republic, no, I'm forgetting, even though we were doing it last night for hours. Conquest? No,
Galactic Seasons.
Galactic Season. It's called Season. Why couldn't I think of it? It's called Season. Galactic Seasons in Star Wars, you have a series of things. You can do 7 out of the 10 things that you can do per week. And you can do like one thing per day, which is just sort of like do anything off of the conquest list, which is sort of like daily challenges. There's seasons. So season 16, there's ranks of the season. I think it's 100 ranks, and there's daily challenges and weekly challenges. So that's a thing you can do. There's dailies for the different factions to raise your reputation with the factions, because maybe the higher reputation, you're going to unlock some cool armor or skin or reward from one of the factions. Maybe you want to be with the responders. They're kind of like a medic crew that is going out and being good Samaritans around the land. So you could do dailies for them. There's the world events, and the world events are open world public events that pop up on the map. You'll see an alert happen on your screen, and you can quick travel to them. And anyone of the 25 people that are on your server might go there. There are popular ones that everybody goes to. There are ones that people kind of ignore. You could go try to do yourself. It's hard to finish a world event by yourself, but it's possible. You could go do those world events, and there's a lot of really good rewards for doing that, and you get a lot of experience and leveling up really fast for doing those world events, and you're playing with a whole bunch of other people, so it sort of gets people engaged. It gets people grouping up. There's a bunch of grouping systems. In fact, you get a pretty big XP gain just for grouping up with random people. Anyone, if you got friends, fine. If it's just random people, you can do that too. You open the map, you hit the social, the social menu, and you can start or join a casual group, which is a group of 4 people, which are just out there doing everything. You don't talk to those people typically. You don't group up with them. Maybe you'll run into them out in the world, maybe not. For casual groups, it's just a way to be connected to other people and get the experience boost. But it reinforces that this is a multiplayer game with Fallout 76, which you did not get, obviously, with the single-player Fallout games. But tons of stuff to do, tons of ways to play, good feel of the game, and still tells the story. So I'm really pleased with it. It got me back into the world. It got me back into understanding what the story was. There's still a lot of the challenges. There's still a lot of the jankiness of a Bethesda system where their user interface, I don't know why they cannot get user interfaces to work very well. The card screen, when you're slotting cards into the perks, that works pretty well. I think it's kind of really made for a controller, maybe. Everything else, I'm like waving my mouse around, and I'm like, sometimes you hit escape to go back, sometimes you hit tab to go back, and I keep hitting escape and then exiting out of a thing and need to go back into it. I'm
Right.
like, what the hell, Bethesda? Can you just make anything consistent in here? Make it work like anything else. I think if you were 100% controller, maybe it would be a little bit easier. But you do get that story feel in all of their games. So maybe that's a good point to sort of transition and talk about the story of the TV show and the adaptation of the TV show from the world, not from any particular game, which I think is an interesting aspect of what they've got going on here.
Right.
So let's talk about that for a sec.
I really love with the show that they set it in the world, but apart from any of the, like, it comes after any of the games, so it doesn't have to.
Yeah.
You don't, and me as a player, like, I do have a little bit of experience now with Fallout, and I did read some stuff, but I don't feel like I would have had to. Like, I know people who never played any Fallout game, watched the show, and completely enjoyed it for what it was. You didn't have to know anything about the game.
Right.
It's kind of brilliant in that respect. And when I was watching it, it did cross my mind. It's like, I wonder how much there is in here for the people who have played the game. Like, every time they would show a shot of a devastated cityscape, I wondered if that would trigger a memory for someone who had played the Fallout games, or yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of that in there, but you're not missing anything if you're not getting every Easter egg or you're
Right.
not noticing those
Right.
little things. And they're not really pulling me out. You know, sometimes that kind of fan service, if it's done poorly, I don't, it annoys me and it like pulls me out of the, you know, I've got a bad feeling about this. Oh, he said the thing. Yeehaw.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of that, but it's really low key. Like the dog is kind of modeled off of the dog companion in Fallout 4, but they don't call the dog dog meat. They don't give the dog really a name.
Oh, they do call the dog meat.
Oh, did they? Oh, he did say dog meat, didn't
The
he?
ghoul called him that one time.
Yeah, he did say that. You're right. But it was like a throwaway thing. It wasn't like,
But I didn't
oh my
know that was
God,
the game
it's dog
reference.
meat. Everybody. Remember dog meat? I remember. And it's not the dog meat from Fallout 4, I don't think. Well, I guess it could be. But I don't think it is. No, it's not. In fact, we see
No,
it as a puppy.
yeah, we see him as
from
a
the
puppy.
Enclave.
Yeah.
She eats yum yum deviled eggs at one point. But it's only on screen for like 0.2 seconds. But this is like a lot of those little things.
Oh, she does? 'Cause I missed that.
Yeah.
I only saw the poster in the extra added info that Prime gives you.
Yeah, it's like it's just, I mean, she's out in the wasteland. It's like episode 3 or 4, I think, and she's like sitting down taking a break and eating a deviled egg, and it's got the box like laying there by her feet, but it's really only like on the screen for like
Oh,
5 seconds.
nice.
Um, but yeah, so as you said, and we talked about this a lot last week of where it falls in the timeline. Fallout 76. So Fallout TV series takes place after everything. Fallout 76 actually takes place before everything, the multiplayer game. So the
Right.
bombs dropped in 2077. 2102 is
The
when
Great
Fallout's,
War.
yeah, the Great War is 2077. 2102 is when Fallout 76 happens. Then 60 years later is the first Fallout game. And then 80 years after that is Fallout 2. Then 30 years after that is Fallout 3. Then Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, Fallout 4, all are within about 10 years or so. And then the series is another 15 years after that. So Fallout, the TV series, is last. It's 15 years. No, it's only 10 years after the end of Fallout 4. It's 15 years after Fallout New Vegas. So it's after all of the games. Now we're sort of in the realm of the TV series. So it's able to, as you said, it's nice that they set it in the world. It's an adaptation of the game, sort of like the extended universe, but it's not retelling the story of any one of the games.
Right.
Which would have been problematic in the same way that making a KOTOR movie about Revan
Right.
would be a problem, because we played these, like
And there's different paths you can follow.
right. Yeah. So Fallout 4, you could have been the mom or the dad, male or female, and right there they would have had to make a choice if they were going to adapt that story and tell that story. And it already could have broken it for 50% of the people.
Right. Just from that. And then but yeah, and beyond that though, you felt a certain way when you were playing that character, and your motivations for that character were a certain way, and it's never going to match
Yeah.
what a writer would come up with. It's just because it's two different people,
Right.
or maybe even more.
So the game world, I think, is well adapted. They did the right amount, I think, of fan service and staging of the world. There is one interesting point that's sort of being debated out there that people are tossing around back and forth, about if they went, or even if Bethesda went the right direction after Fallout's 1, 2, and 3, which is Fallout in the world of Fallout supposed to be post-apocalyptic, or is it supposed to be post-apocalyptic? And by that, some people are debating, if it's post-apocalyptic, well, then that's really the area that the TV show is in, where everything's still devastated. There's skeletons on the ground. Everything's bombed out, and everything's a mess, and all the factions, and war never changes. If it's post-apocalyptic and everything is sort of like being rebuilt and society's coming back and resurging, well, that tells it sort of like that's in a different place and telling a different story. So that's I hear that being debated.
I mean, that is an interesting point, because before survival games, like way before survival games, if me personally read a post-apocalyptic book, it would be about rebuilding. That would be like what everyone was trying to do. They would, you know, get running water going in their camp, and they would, it would be like that would be the story. But by that definition, that's sort of like post apocalyptic, whereas in a post apocalyptic story, you just hang out in the wasteland and
Yeah.
do stuff.
Or yeah, is where are things at? Are things coming back? Have you built back from? You could say Wheel of Time is like post apocalyptic, because Wheel of Time, the world was broken.
Right.
The place that we're put into in the beginning of the books and the story of Wheel of Time is a well-functioning society, but it's built on the ruins of a much older society and a post-apocalyptic world that was the world was broken by the dragon.
Right.
Here, it's the world is broken, and the question is, because of these warring factions, and we we get a couple of perspective on this by episode 8. Will it ever come back, or will all of these factions just continue to clash and keep us in this post-apocalyptic state?
Right. Because that is kind of the message in this show is like, do human beings actually build or do they just always destroy?
Right. Which is a good question. And you've
Yeah.
got, and what would you do to bring about a better world? That's obviously a key question as well. So
Right.
obviously we're getting a little bit into spoiler territory here. We're going to talk about the characters a little bit, and then we're going to get deeper into spoilers. But if you want no spoilers at all, you probably need to stop now. As we progress over the course of the next 20 minutes or so, we'll probably get more and more spoilery. But we're edging into it already, just to warn people. So let's talk about the characters. One of the ways I heard sort of this described, and you can get the feel of it, and I don't know if it was intentional or not, but there's sort of 3 main stories and 3 main characters, and then there's side characters that have their own arcs. But there's 3 really good arcs going on, which is Lucy, the Vault Dweller, Maximus, Brotherhood of Steel, and the Ghoul, who we learn is Cooper Howard.
Mm-hmm.
And each of them, I heard it described as they could represent almost like a playthrough archetype, which is, well, maybe you played some of the games and you joined the Brotherhood of Steel, and that was like your personality. Or maybe you played as that, that okie dokie, happy-go-lucky, positive outlook Vault Dweller, and you went through the game that way. Maybe that's the way you play in Fallout 76. Or you played as like the Raider or the Ghoul, where it's like, you're going to just shoot your way through whatever you need to do. You need to make the hard choices, and you're going to get yourself through the world. And, you're on your own. That's one way of looking at it. The second way is even down to like the build. People are like debating the stats and the perks of each of these characters. So I don't know if it was intentional. Now that I've sort of described it and you've seen it in the games a little bit, what is your feel? I mean, do you get the feel that the showrunners did that? Do you think they like sat around a table and said, "Well, what are the stats and what are their perks? What do you think these people are?"
I'm a little bit colored by having read a few lit RPG books where the connection to that is just really, really strong.
Mm-hmm.
But I got a feeling that the story here is more about the setting and the people. And I never got a feeling of like she grows in confidence, but I never got a feeling like, oh, her confidence stat was coming up.
True. You're right. I don't get that that lit RPG feel of like, their character, their character sheet is advancing.
Right.
I do get the feel, not so much with Lucy, because she's just sort of in between. They're like, their character sheets don't advance that much, but I do feel like I can see the connection to a character sheet especially for Max and for Cooper. Cooper, where I talked to you about the VATS build, where you can sort of like freeze time and you get like that perfect shot, and you've got all your action points that allow you to like line up those perfect shots. And that's the way he rolls, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But okay, so you have a view of his character sheet, but it's not like he's actually gaining in stats. He's
No.
already
Yeah, they're each in their own way kind of like a maxed out character.
right.
Well, Maximus is not.
Well, that's true.
Maximus is definitely growing as a character, and he ends up in getting in the armor and being like not knowing how to use it, and then he learns how to use it better, and he grows. He seems to grow in both ability and confidence as a character arc, but also in abilities as well.
And he hasn't had exposure to like the real basic human interactions, which
Mm-hmm.
I think that
Super naive and dumb
he's
in
super
some ways.
naive. Yeah. And the actor whose name I don't have in front of me right now, but he was really convincing
Aaron
about
Aaron
that.
Moten
Yeah.
is the actor.
Like, you could
Yeah.
see him thinking through something and
Yeah.
getting puzzled and working through it and coming back,
Yeah, he was
and
really good at, like, that switch to, like, the blank expression and the
yeah.
switch to sort of, like, the conflicted worldview.
And
Like
then his decision to actually do something.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a perk card in Fallout 4 called Idiot Savant, and people have suspected that this is a key perk
Well,
card that Maximus, has utilized. And the way this
maybe.
yeah, the way it worked was maybe you made your build with really low intelligence. Well, if you have low intelligence, it's harder to level up and you have less XP. Well, what the Idiot Savant card did was the lower your intelligence, the higher you got the ability for like random XP bonuses to like boost you up and get you ahead and move you like you get like random experience and like leveling up ability.
I can see that because he certainly got moved ahead in a couple of
Yeah,
instances, that sort of with things just happened around him.
right. He like failed upwards multiple
Right.
times throughout the season. So people have sort of argued that yes, he must have this perk card. Um,
That's an entertaining way to look at things.
yeah. Yeah, and maybe not. Who knows? But I thought that was interesting. He is, I think, a really interesting character too. They're all interesting in their own ways. They're all in some ways shades on a spectrum of shades of gray. Where Lucy is the lawful good, the closest to lawful good. I think Max is kind of in the middle, and Coop is at the almost bad, almost evil in some ways, or maybe definitely on that chaotic evil end of the spectrum.
Because we still don't know, even after the end of season 1, we still don't know what he did in 2077. He may
Right,
be pure. He may be evil.
right, yeah. Who know? Yeah, I
Like
guess we don't. He's
like right now, we kind of think he's making the best of hundreds of years in the wasteland,
yeah, and
but
his situation and what
and his
what's
situation,
been
right?
done to him.
What he's learned he has to do to survive. But maybe he did something heinous in 2077. We don't know yet.
Right, but he's definitely done plenty of heinous things
Right.
during the season too. I mean, he nearly shot Lucy in the face about 3 times, and he's shot plenty of other people in the face.
Right.
He comes in, well, I mean, he comes out of the ground and shoots and kills 3 people that like got him out of the ground. We meet the guy from Lost, the who turns into a severed head
Ahead.
relatively
Right.
quickly. The scientist, and the first thing he does when he sees the guy is he blows his leg off. That like freaked me out. I have a problem with dismemberment, with like losing limbs.
Yeah.
Like I would rather get like like shot in the chest and like be bleeding, like shot in the lung and be bleeding out than like have an arm shot off or a leg shot off. That was crazy in my view. So there's that. He cuts Lucy's finger off because she bit one of his fingers off.
Right. Because he was trying to. Well, yeah. It was self defense when she did it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was self-defense, and I mean, he was not being nice to her. He wasn't like killing her, but he was not being nice to her, and it was self-defense. She was trying to get away. She bit his finger off, and he grabs her hand and methodically, looks her straight in the eyes and says, and he cuts her finger off in retribution. And his comment then was, "I think that was just about the most honest exchange we've ever had." Um, so
Yeah.
they both get their fingers back, which made it a little better
Well,
better for
he
me.
gets his finger back. She gets a finger
She
back.
gets a finger back, right? Again, with some good references to the games, she meets one of the robots, the 3-armed robots, which are iconic in the game, and one of them finds a random finger in a drawer that he's been saving and just zip stitches it back onto her hand. but then she's walking around, so it's not in this picture, but her finger is like it works. She seemed to be perfectly happy with it, but it was like some random corpse finger out of a drawer, and it's like darkened and deformed, or like at least discolored.
That robot, by the way, was voiced by Matt Berry. So anyone, if you're like a fan of the IT crowd or what we do in the shadows, yeah,
Ah, yeah, okay, that Matt Berry. All right,
yeah,
I saw his name in the list, but
and he actually occurs later in the show too as an as an actual character in 2077 in a flashback.
um,
Yeah, when that robot come out, I'm like, because I had seen I knew he was in it somewhere, and I'm like, when am I going to see Matt Berry? And this robot comes out, I'm like, oh, there he is.
yeah. So Cooper Howard, the Ghoul, he's been around since the bombs dropped. He's in the flashbacks. He was the one who was an actor, got roped in to be the spokesperson for Vault Tech, and then by the end of the season realizes, in the flashbacks, that Vault Tech is in his view, in his 2077 view, evil, because you can see it in his face. I mean, things are going off the rails, and he's not happy with it. Since then, things have changed. He is now a ghoul. This is 200 years later. He's been walking the earth, and he is kind of fallen to the dark side. And I was thinking about the fall to the dark side and just sort of like becoming a bad version of yourself, because you put yourself in a position where you got to do what you got to do, and it seems like he's still on a quest to find his family, quote unquote, which is his wife and daughter, because that's how he sort of explains that
I
definitely
mean, that was
clearly by the
yeah,
end.
right. It comes out as his basic moving force for this whole journey
Yep.
in season 1.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. That's you don't realize even specifically what he's trying to do. Is he out for vengeance? Is he trying to kill somebody? Does he want to kill Moldaver? Does he want to kill um McLean Howard? Or yeah, was that his name? Lucy's dad?
Hank. It's Hank.
Hank McLean. Does he want to kill them? He wants to find out what has happened to his family. But he's a Vats build gunslinger also. He has problems because he's a ghoul, and I guess in this version, the ghouls need to be consuming a drug regularly to maintain their physical body
Integrity.
and their mind. Then, associated with that, a little bit of cannibalism in there, a little bit of murder. He definitely murders anybody that's in his way. No problem with that. And
Just light cannibalism.
light cannibalism. But I feel like if you were gonna like rewrite the story of Anakin's fall to the dark side, I kind of like this way to go, which is Anakin's fall to the dark side was his premonition that he was going to lose Padme drove him in that direction. What if instead he lost Padme and he got burned by the lava, and like thing after thing after thing puts him into this position where his world is like destroyed, and then he decides that enough is enough. Now I'm going to embrace the dark side because there's no other way to move forward. I feel like that's what Coop's position is in, is
Mhm.
he's lost everything, including his like physical body, his mortality, his humanity, and now he's a Sith Lord, however you want to sort of think of it that way, the equivalent in this world. That's pretty compelling to me. And then do you say, is he a good guy or a bad guy? Is he an antagonist or a protagonist? And at the beginning of the series, I thought he was an antagonist and he was a bad guy. He was an antagonist of the story, like fighting against Maximus and
Right.
Lucy. By the end, he's not. He's
Right.
a protagonist by the end.
Right. He never really fights against them. They just got in
Right.
his way.
Right.
Yeah.
Either got in his way or he used them, or he even like stabs the dog the first time he meets the dog because the dog attacks him. but then he's like friends with the dog by the end. Um,
Provisionally.
yeah, yeah,
He does say to the dog, "Well, you're not him,"
right, right. But
meaning his
he can
dog.
say that, but especially by the end,
Yeah, I mean,
it's his dog.
yeah, I thought that too.
Same thing with Lucy. Take it or leave it. But by the
But
end,
again, like this, the very first flashback is of him at a birthday party, and he's got his daughter with him, and the bomb goes off, and he grabs his daughter, and they run away. We don't know what happened after
yeah,
that. Like,
we
we
don't
don't
know.
know. Like, I've thought about that before. Like, are any of these characters going to turn out to be his daughter? Or, blah,
Yeah,
blah, blah, this and that and the other thing. And I mean, maybe there is a choice he made that led to him being separated from his daughter.
yeah,
I would say his wife and his daughter, but I feel like his wife made her own choice that
yes,
said separated herself off from humanity.
yeah, yeah. And that, I mean, that was rough at that point, and I think that could be a like when he was at that birthday party, and so sort of like doing that side work for money. In my
Uh-huh.
mind, he had like left his life and like took his daughter and left his life and like
Yeah.
divorce, and she'd
Like
got the
his wife
house
and the vault space.
and he was doing these shitty jobs, that stuck
Yeah.
up rich guy was saying, well, he took my money.
Right.
He's
Like
not he's not too good to be, working for me, at a birthday party for a kid, getting his picture taken.
for all we know, he may have taken a stand
Yeah.
against what Vaultec was doing and then got branded as a commie, quote
Right.
unquote, and that's how he lost his Hollywood career.
That's that's the story that was playing out in my mind by the end too.
Yeah.
Again, part of his fall to the dark side, and then Vaultec does what Vaultec does, and Robco does what Robco does, and the world ends, and he loses his wife and daughter even further along the way because we realize he doesn't know where they are or what happened to them through the course of the series, and ends up his journey to the dark side is complete, but can he be redeemed? Because you want to like him, but like every 2 episodes, even by the end, I thought he was like, I was liking him, like he's good, he's doing good, and then episode 7 was like in my mind a big step to keep him on the bad side, which was again
Yeah.
another
This
sort of a big
this is
spoiler.
this is a big spoiler.
Eric Estrada.
Well, not that. That's just a casting thing. But yeah. Spoiler's still coming.
Eric Estrada's kid, he runs into Eric Estrada's older kid, it turns out, early in one of the shootouts. And that's how he gets to this point where this is a clue of where he needs to go to find Moldaver, who is the raider. That's where he's trying to go again to find more information about his wife and daughter. And the end of that, he gives the family a choice. So the son, there's like this, what would you say? He's like 16, 17-year-old kid, son.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Eric Estrada's the dad. And
Like
Eric
a young teen. Yeah.
And then there's the younger daughters is there. And he's like, I just need to know where to go. And Eric Estrada's like, okay, now you know where to go. Please just leave. And before he leaves, he looks the kid in the eye and says, are you going to come after me someday? Are you going to be my enemy? Because what I did to your brother. And if that's the case, I'm going to take you down. And he, eye contact, gives the kid the choice. The kid reaches for a gun and he shoots the kid in the chest. And I thought it wasn't going to go that way. I thought that was a rough way to go and a deliberate choice on the showmaker's side to keep him like on the dark side. We were describing in the pre-show one of my favorite scenes. Well, every scene is my favorite scene out of Kill Bill, but in Kill Bill 1, there is a scene where spoilers for Kill Bill 1, but it's early in the movie, where Beatrice, the bride, Uma Thurman, gets into a knife battle gunfight with one of the people on her list that she's on her way to kill before she kills Bill, um, and fights her in her home, in her kitchen. The woman sends her daughter off to like go upstairs, lock yourself in your room. I got to talk to my friend here. They fight to the death. She kills the mom, and the daughter's in the doorway and sees it happen. Now the daughter's much younger at this point. She's like probably like a 10-year-old kid. But Uma Thurman looks at the daughter and says, I realize you're going to be pretty raw about this. And if someday you need to come for me, you need to do what you need to do, and you can come for me. I'll be ready, but you do what you got to do, and then leaves. So same thing. Uma Thurman could have said, "This is a loose end. Somebody's going to come for me. I can't leave an enemy behind. This is war," and could have like killed the kid, and that would have been a very dark side thing to do. I thought in that scene, in that moment, Coop was going to let the kid go. Because he definitely could have, right? He's like a
Yeah.
super gunslinger Vats. Nobody gets the drop on him. He could have let the kid grow up and come for him and shot him then when he came for him.
Right. Plus, he doesn't like his life either. Anyway.
Right. He's yeah. Like, sure, come for me, kill me. I'd probably be happier if you did manage to kill. If somebody managed it, all you weak attempts to take me down, that amount to nothing, in his nihilistic worldview. But no, I think it was a deliberate view to keep him dark. So we'll see where he goes. Lucy, I think, is much simpler of a character, and the story more happens around her a little bit, but she comes out of the gate with abilities and skills, but
Right.
allows her optimism to keep her moving forward in a really good way, I think. I think it's still well developed. She's not like a blank slate and things just happen to her. She drives, she's the master of her own destiny.
Right.
In such a cool way to allow an optimistic character to continue to be buoyed through this post-apocalyptic horrible world. Even to the very
And
last moment.
Right. And even at the very end, the penultimate act of hers is an act of compassion, I
Right.
believe. Yeah.
Right. And she could have been like broken. She could have turned to the dark side when she realized, major spoilers here last episode. Realized who her dad was and what her dad did, realized what happened to her mom and that act of compassion around the state of her mom. But then, even then, she decides that she's going to go on, and her final words of the season, there's a couple more scenes after this. I don't think she says, I don't think she even says anything in the final scene when they're walking off, but she looks at the ground, she looks at the situation in Moldavers, the ghoul is walking off, and she says, okie dokie.
Right. Right.
So she's like still there. It's like a pretty depressed okie dokie, but it's an okie dokie. And she's going to go, continue to be buoyed along with her optimism and her skills. She fights her way out of multiple situations.
Yeah, she definitely has skills, and she has she's been taught it makes sense to use them.
Right. Yeah. And then smack in the middle and vacillating between dark and light and not knowing, not really even knowing what he thinks himself is Maximus. And Maximus brushes up against some other great characters. So there's Knight Titus, who is played by, what's his name? Didn't I have that written down? I don't think I did. Dang it. Where is that one?
But he's a character actor that I saw this movie recently, Beautiful Girls, when someone recommended it to me. He's a character in that movie, but he plays whiny and abusive so well.
But yeah, so he lets Knight Titus die. But that's early in the season, right? Knight Titus was the sort of like he was a squire. He was assigned to the knight. He got blamed by for his friend who was that really cool actor, Zelia Mendez-Jones, who played the other squire who was supposed to take his place, or who got promoted before he did, and got the leg sliced up in the boot. And so at first Maximus gets blamed for that, and then Maximus gets to go in their place. It's all weirdly situations where Maximus fails forward. He didn't make it as a squire. He didn't get picked for the squire program, but then he ends up going as a squire. He's not he's not figuring out how to even like get Knight Titus to like him. But Knight Titus is an ass and an idiot anyway, and ends up dying because he's a coward, and Knight Titus lets him die. He could have saved him, but too many times. How many times in the series was somebody like telling Knight Titus or telling Maximus, "Man, you're dead. They're gonna execute you."
Right.
What do you think he's gonna do? Why would
Right.
you like put somebody in a corner like that? So each time that happens, he's like, "Well, I guess I guess I'm gonna let you die then, or I'm going to kill you."
Right.
Because the second person who does that to him is
Thaddeus.
Thaddeus. Thaddeus, who did such a good job of being a weird character, a weird
Right. Like
side character.
in the beginning, the first scenes with Thaddeus, when it was more like his persona was just like schoolyard bully, I thought, "Oh, I'm gonna hate this guy." But then he was then when he got out in the wasteland and was doing his thing, he was kind of weirdly adorable.
Right. And so he gets sent out to replace who they think Maximus calls in and says, this is Knight Titus. Yeah, my squire Maximus, he's dead. And then they go, "Oh, well, we'll send you another squire. No problem." He's like, no, don't need that. And they end up sending Thaddeus to be his squire. He stays in the armor, and Thaddeus comes out and basically is the same green squire that Maximus was. And he's like, "Okay, oh, Knight Titus, I'm here to carry your bag. I'll do whatever you want." And Maximus kind of likes it because the guy was a bully, and like lets him debase himself in front of him. But he also then asks Thaddeus at some point to tell him about Maximus. Tell me about Maximus. Tell me something you liked or didn't like about him. I think he says, "Tell me what you didn't like about Maximus." And Thaddeus basically explains why he was a bully. He's like, "Well, when I first got there, I was bullied. I got my ass kicked all the time. And then this new guy shows up. It's Maximus, and I started to bully him, and then I didn't get bullied anymore. And I wasn't all that pleased with myself, but hey, I got myself out of it. And I felt a little bad about that. And I really wish Maximus had a chance to find someone else to bully and get himself out of that situation before he died. So I'm sad that he died without being able to bully somebody else and get off the bottom of the pile." And then you realize you kind of sympathize with Thaddeus at that point. And Maximus kind of does too. But then
Maximus, in his naivete,
right, his naivete
decides,
flips up his visor. So I gotta tell you something. It's really me. It's Maximus. And Thaddeus goes, "What the hell, man?
they're gonna kill you.
You're dead.
Yeah.
I'm out of here. I'm getting out." And he tries. So then he's like, "Well, shit. Now I got to kill you." And he crushes his foot. But Thaddeus dodges, duck, dip, dive, and dodge, and then yanks the power cell out of the back of the power armor, and leaves Maximus locked in the power armor while he runs away. And then, there's a couple other really good scenes. And so you said it today. He used to be a squire till he took an arrow to the neck.
Right.
So
Right.
So Thaddeus's foot is all mangled. Oh, where was the chicken guy? Oh, they called him Chicken Collector in the IMDb. the doctor. So
Oh
there's
yeah,
the quack
he's
snake oil salesman doctor. He was
snake oil
also
salesman.
yeah, so he's called snake oil sales. I've somewhere else in the IMDb he was called chicken collector. The first time we see him, the doctor, Thaddeus like, saves the doctor from getting beat up on by a farmer, and the farmer says, "Well, I just was trying to get that guy away because he was having sex with my chickens."
Yeah,
And Thaddeus is like, "Oh." So then, not Thaddeus, Maximus in the
right.
power armor, because
Maximus, yeah.
Maximus keeps like screwing up. He like keep doing these dumb things and failing. He still fails forward, but he still fails. So Thaddeus runs into the doctor and is look, my foot is all mangled. I'm gonna get gangrene. I'm gonna die. And the doctor's like, "Oh, I'll fix you up." And he gives him this serum to fix him up, and it does. It magically fixes his foot. So then Thaddeus takes an arrow to the neck, pulls the arrow, and he's like standing there. He's like, "Oh my God, why am I not dead?" Lucy and Maximus are standing right there. It was like some booby trap. Shoots an arrow through his neck, and they're like, Thaddeus, you get an arrow in your neck. He's like, don't pull it out. It's like, well, I'm not going to leave an arrow in my neck. He pulls it out, and it heals up. He's like, Thaddeus, I think you're a ghoul. He's like, well, crap. What am I gonna do now? I'm a ghoul.
I never should have trusted a doctor that smelled like that.
So he's like, oh shit, well, I can't go back. They'll kill me if they find out I'm a ghoul. I gotta take off. And Maximus is like, okay, well, go. We'll cover for you. Just go run away. Just give us the power cell or whatever. We'll do what we need to do. So yeah, that was funny. And all during that time, that was when Fred Armisen showed up. So Chris Parnell and Fred Armisen are in this too. We gotta wrap this up. We're just like telling the whole story now.
Yeah, right.
But those
Right.
two guys were in it. So anyway, Maximus is this character who's like in the middle. He does bad things. He does good things. He's conflicted about what his position is, what his story is. He even says that explicitly. I've done bad things. I don't know if I'm bad or good. I don't know what I am.
Right.
And
Like he always thought the Brotherhood was a force for good, and now he's having to question that.
right, to the point where he doesn't even want to be in the Brotherhood. He wants to leave the Brotherhood, and he keeps failing forward. And you know, his friend Dane, who the one he replaced, basically thrusts him into the limelight once again by the end of the season, and he becomes Knight Maximus, and he's going to become like the right-hand man of the chief monk who runs this faction of the Brotherhood, and he doesn't want any of that. But he
Right.
continues to fail upward. Because he kind of liked the vault life, didn't he? It's like, I got these slippers and they're really comfortable. And have you ever tasted oysters? They're really, really good.
Yeah.
So yeah, naive and
And there's a great scene when he sees her, go past his picture window, and she's being dragged by these other vault people, and he looks at his bowl of popcorn, and then he goes,
it's like,
put down the popcorn, take off his slippers and his robe, and get in his suit and go save her.
yeah, it's like
But he
one last
messes that
handful
up
of
too.
popcorn shoved into his mouth.
Right.
Yeah, so he's in the middle, and then there's all these great side characters all around. Moldaver is a really interesting character. Is she a force for good or a force for evil? Did she fall to the dark side? I think she kind of did, but ultimately was a force for good, both back in the 2070s and in the present. I don't know how she stayed alive and in her prime, or if she got frozen or something. So maybe but I don't know if we'll find that out. But yeah, and then even just like small characters, like her brother, Moises, is the is the actor who plays Norm MacLean. And he's the one who sort of describes or finds out what's going on back in the vaults, because she leaves him behind in the vaults. And as you said, he's a strange actor because he's like short and slight, but he looks older by a decade at least than Lucy, and
Right,
he's supposed to be her
right.
little brother. But he does a really good job. I like him. I like Chet.
Oh, he's really good.
Um,
And that there's a theme with him about cowardice, right? And he says in the very beginning when Lucy's leaving, she says something like, "You could come with me," and he said, "No, I'm a coward."
yeah,
But it's just very matter of fact. And then in one of the late episodes, possibly the last one, but it could be episode 7, he says to one of the other um, vault dwellers, he says, "You're a coward." And that vault dweller says, "Yeah, we all are."
yeah, yeah. We all are. We just chose to stay in the vault. What are you talking about, Norm?
Right, right,
Yeah, which is true.
right.
Yeah. So he's good. I lost my notes here. There, I broke them. But uh, so Chris Parnell and Fred Armisen, they were fine, but they were themselves from like.
Chris Parnell was a little hard to look at.
Well, he was definitely hard to look at as well because why?
He only had one eye.
Because he only had one eye.
And it was in the middle, and so it was like it was animated.
Yeah.
And they well, maybe the expressions came from his real eye, but they somehow moved it to the middle. But it was just sort of like, is it open or is it closed? I kept watching his eye.
And squinting, yeah, it was
Yeah,
and I would
squinting,
imagine
right.
you even would if you met a mutated cyclops human in real life,
I would
but,
yes, I probably would. You're right. You
um,
know me so well.
but he was totally just like a Chris Parnell from a Saturday Night Live sketch, so it took me out of it just a little bit, like the whole, "Okay, Goosey." No, my name's Lucy.
Yeah,
Nope, it says right here, Goosey.
right.
So then he calls her Goosey for the next 3 episodes. Don't you know? And and Fred Armisen was a very short scene. He's running a radio station out in the wasteland, and that's Thaddeus meets up with him, and he's out there. But
And he's had to kill people who didn't like fiddle music.
right, so he's got a bunch of like traps, booby traps all around. But then he's like he does that whole thing about they don't, it's analog and it's analog music, and they don't make them like this. They don't make 'em speakers and reproduction like this. You can hear the highs and Thaddeus is like, yeah, the highs and you can really hear the mids, and he's like, yeah, like the mid like that. It's like no oh there's it's like a Fred Armisen bit. It took me out
Yeah.
of it just a little bit, but it's but I like Fred Armisen. It was a fine bit, but it was totally a bit, which I thought was a weird choice. I don't like when they're doing bits in the middle of shows, like Jack Black in The Mandalorian, doing a Jack Black bit. It's like why did you
Yeah.
have to do that? I didn't need the bit in there because there's too many other good characters. Kyle MacLachlan, who plays her dad. I don't know why I didn't recognize him in the first half of the season. In fact,
You didn't?
I didn't. I don't know who I thought that guy was. Because it doesn't look like, young Kyle MacLachlan.
You're right. He looks older than the young one.
Well, he's got like a round face now. Kyle MacLachlan never had a round face. I don't know when's the last time I saw Kyle MacLachlan in something,
I
but
I still think he looks exactly like his young self.
well,
Whenever I see him, it really jumps out at me.
oops, mute that because I was going over to that Amazon Vault thing. I didn't realize it was Kyle MacLachlan until episode 8 because they had a flashback and they de-aged him in the
Mhm.
flashback to the young Kyle MacLachlan.
And you're like, "What?"
I'm like, hey, that's Kyle MacLachlan. Oh
Yes.
wait, I know that's who. Oh wait, he's
He's in my favorite movie, Dune.
who plays the old Kyle MacLachlan? Oh, it's Kyle MacLachlan. I was kind of dumb about that, but he does a great job. The woman who plays Moldaver does a great job. So yeah, it's really good. Anyway, so
That reminds me, that's a good movie, The Hidden. Kyle MacLachlan.
well, see, I didn't
Science
see
fiction
that.
movie, The Hidden.
So it's and Betty. We didn't mention Betty, who's in
Oh, yeah.
Deadpool.
Deadpool, you're right.
but does a really great job in this as
And she was
the
also in Roots.
vault director. She's been in a bunch of things. As you said, you found her
Yeah,
musical
I
career.
did. I did
Um,
like a little black hole on Leslie Uggams. It was just so fascinating. But she was like one of the first black women on primetime TV.
but she's also awesome in
And
Deadpool.
yeah, yeah.
As a real spitfire.
I did watch some clips of her in from Deadpool, and she was awesome.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, so great characters, a faithful adaptation of the extended universe, and the opportunity to bring a new story to the extended universe, which I think was a great way to do it, and a great way to have a video game show happen, a video game adaptation happen. So well done, great characters. Looking forward to season 2. They left
I
some good.
just realized that the tagline on that poster for Spam says something like you may not want to eat it, but you have to eat it before tomorrow or something like
Cram. Yeah, it keeps. You may not want to eat it today, but you may have to eat it tomorrow. It's
that.
cram.
Right.
Yeah. There's so many of those good things that linger. You know, the roaches obviously linger and they're mutated and they're big red roaches. But the freeze dried packaged food that lingers in the future past the nuclear Armageddon is pretty hilarious as well. That's the beauty of the Fallout world as well. It's the optimism, the music, and the soundtrack are all really good as well. But yeah, so well balanced characters, well adapted player character archetypes potentially. Maybe that's what they were going for. If not, they did. They landed there. Well adapted game world that's both recognizable but still holds together to someone who's never played the games or seen the games before. I think they did a great job, and then we'll see where it goes. I think they answered enough questions to make a very cohesive season 1, and they left a few questions open to make
Or
a good
or started some new ones.
started a new arc to make us want to get into and see a season 2.
Let's see if we do.
We'll see. We'll be the judge of that, won't we, Sema?
Yes, we will.
All right, so I think I'm gonna still keep playing some Fallout 76. Maybe it'll be a thing that I play on and off. I would like to build out my build more, get a little bit more into endgame. I would like to try some of those endgame. I have not done a expedition or a daily operation, a daily ops yet. I would like to try to do those. But I have a really good, level 60 build at this point. I can hold my own in the group content, the open world events, the public events. So I'm feeling good, but I want to get my armor and I want to upgrade. I want to get a legendary pistol, even though I have a really good one that's customized. And so I'll probably be playing it a little bit more. I probably will not, even though I restarted Fallout 4, I probably will not continue with that just because I played it before. And I don't know if I actually finished it completely in the past, but that's not the kind of thing I tend to go back to. The persistent worlds are what grab me.
Right.
And I am waiting for season 2. I'm excited for season 2. We'll see if that persists. And when it comes around, as you said, there's sort of like that season 2 malaise that sets in sometimes. But this seems like one that I will want to continue to drive through, and we'll get back to at that point. So anything else to close us out on our Fallout excursion, Sema?
Yeah, I want to make one comment about the music. Yes,
Yeah.
it's the catalog of music they use is from the 50s in our history. But in my mind, it kind of ties back to 2001: A Space Odyssey, which was the first time that I saw where you juxtapose like sweet sounding music over a completely different background. In the case of 2001: A Space Odyssey, it was like spaceships in space doing things, and then beautiful music on top of that that was completely unrelated. And this, and I'm not saying this is the only show that does this, but they use this so well. There have been many shows where they were hyper violent and they did the violence in slow motion and they did sweet music over the top, but I just feel like they did it so well
The
in
whole
this.
the whole world was sort of like built that way, and they
Yes,
played into it and dovetailed on
right.
top of it so well.
You're
You're
right.
right.
Because there's like a sweetness on top of the world.
And I mean, Lucy,
The
just
vault
even as
world
a
anyway.
character and her
Yeah.
optimism buoying the whole season forward and recentering things on this this optimism, this, you know, unassailable optimism. And then that, yeah, that, but still with that dissonance and just rubbing up in the friction against like the violence and the nihilism. It was really, really cool. And it's a good way to go about it. I wouldn't want to like spend time living in a world that's just only dark and depressing and full of cannibals. So it's one of those kind of really very post-apocalyptic, destroyed ruins of a world that's positive enough and sunny enough for me to be okay spending a lot of time there. Which
Yeah.
is, I think is a good way to put it. All right. Well, I think that's it
Alrighty then.
for okie dokie. That is it for our analysis and living in the world of Fallout. We'll probably get to something else next week. Who knows? Maybe we don't. Maybe we won't. Maybe we'll have part 3 of 2 on Fallout next week, but we'll see. To keep in contact, to find out when we're going to talk about something else next, definitely connect to all our feed and subscribe links that are on newoverlords.com and check out our videos and subscribe there and like and comment on YouTube/newoverlords. Please come chat with us in our Discord at newoverlords.com/Discord. Any time of the day or night, we are in there playing games and we will chat it up. Give me ideas of what else we should be talking about. Sema has an idea of maybe a little survival game that we should be checking out. We might
Yeah.
get into next week. When we do those kinds of things, we often put the word out in our Discord and sometimes on Monday nights do an open call for anybody that wants to come play it with us. So check that out this week. Maybe we'll set something up for Monday. And definitely keep an eye on all the social networks. We're out there as well. And with that, we will talk to you soon.
Later, everyone.